The episode begins with Stewie hearing a strange sound in his room, a faint static crackling coming from his old baby monitor, the one no one has touched in months. It sits on his shelf, dusty, long forgotten. Late at night, just as Stewie is about to fall asleep, the monitor suddenly turns on by itself. A weak, trembling voice comes through. "Stewie, can you hear me?" Stewie jumps up and grabs the monitor. "Who is this?" The voice is faint, muffled, as if speaking from far away, or from somewhere below the house. "Everything will change soon. I came early to warn you." The next morning, Stewie tries to tell Lois and Peter that someone is speaking to him through the baby monitor. They laugh it off. Peter says it's probably some neighbor messing around, and Lois insists it's just interference. Stewie tries to explain that it didn't sound like interference at all, but they don't take him seriously. Night after night, the voice returns. "You're alone, Stewie. No one hears you but me." Each time it grows more confident, as if it understands the house better than anyone living in it. Stewie is scared, but he can't stop listening. He starts carrying the monitor around during the day, afraid he'll miss the next message. One evening, the voice says, "They think you're small. They don't listen to you, but everything is going to change soon. You must be ready." Stewie whispers, "Ready for what?" The voice answers slowly, "It's time for you to take control." Then the monitor goes silent for 2 whole days. Stewie becomes restless. He walks through the hallways, checks every room, listens to the walls. He's certain the voice is somewhere close, maybe even inside the house. On the 3rd night, the monitor turns on by itself again, but this time the voice sounds closer, clearer, as if it's standing right behind the door. "Stewie, it's time. You know what to do. You always knew." Stewie trembles but lifts the monitor to his ear. I'm not sure." The voice becomes firm. "You've already begun. Now continue." The lights in the house flicker. The sounds outside disappear. No cars, no wind, no footsteps. Just heavy silence pressing against the windows. Stewie stands in the middle of the living room, tiny and pale, and for a moment it feels like the whole house is watching him. The screen cuts abruptly. A final scene plays like a post-ending shot. It's morning. The living room is empty. Stewie sits alone on the floor, motionless, staring straight ahead. In his hands, the baby monitor, broken clean in half. Wires exposed, batteries missing, plastic cracked. But Stewie still holds it to his ear, as if he's listening to something only he can hear. The episode begins with something completely ordinary. Peter and Brian are walking down the street, joking around, enjoying an evening stroll. Peter tells a dumb joke. Brian gives his usual sarcastic chuckle. Everything feels normal, until a stray dog, dirty, wild-looking, fur bristling, suddenly runs out from behind a parked car. It lunges at Brian, bites him, and bolts into the distance before Peter even realizes what happened. "Whoa! Brian, are you okay?" Peter shouts. Brian looks at him, and in that moment Peter freezes. Brian's pupils suddenly dilate, massively, unnaturally, spreading like black ink across his eyes. For a second his expression goes blank, empty, like he doesn't recognize the world around him. "I'm fine," Brian says, too calmly, too emotionlessly, like he's repeating someone else's words. Peter doesn't believe him. The next day, Brian looks worse, much worse. His pupils stay huge even in bright light. The fur around his neck stands up as if permanently electrified. His canines are longer, sharper, visible even when his mouth is closed. He barely speaks, and when he does, it sounds like 2 voices are overlapping. That evening, he paces the house in long, quiet steps that leave no sound behind. Peter catches glimpses of his shadow bending strangely on the walls, lagging a half-second behind his movements. Stewie eventually says, "Peter, I'm taking him outside. I think something's wrong with him. And Stewie leaves with Brian. Hours pass. Then Brian returns. Alone, Peter rushes to him. Brian, where's Stewie? Where is he? Brian looks up slowly and smiles. A huge, unnatural smile stretching too far across his muzzle. Then he starts laughing. Not a normal laugh. A broken, echoing, strangled laugh. Stewie never comes back. Terrified, Peter and Lois drive Brian to an animal shelter, hoping vets will help him. Medicine, testing, anything. The staff say they'll keep him under supervision. They promise everything is under control. Days pass. The house grows quiet. Too quiet. One evening, Peter comes home earlier than usual. He opens the front door and instantly feels something wrong. The air inside is cold, heavy, unmoving. Lois? Chris? Meg? No voices, no footsteps, no sounds. He steps deeper into the house, and then he sees it. Brian is standing in the middle of the living room. But it isn't Brian anymore. Before Peter stands a massive creature, towering, monstrous. His neck fur has grown into a full bristling mane. His fangs are enormous, jutting out even when his mouth is closed. His limbs are thick, powerful, and his chest rises with slow, thunderous breaths. His eyes glow faintly red. And most terrifying of all, he stands upright on two legs, like a person. Shadows tremble around him as if the room is too small to contain him. Peter steps back. The creature steps forward, and in a soft, eerily gentle voice it says, "I came back, Peter."
It started small, so small that Lois didn't think twice about it. One morning, Stewie sat at the table, unusually quiet, staring at nothing with a strange, fixed expression. He didn't complain, didn't insult Brian, didn't threaten to build a weapon. He just sat there with his hands folded perfectly still. Lois joked, "Wow, Stewie, you're being so well-behaved today." He slowly turned his head toward her, too slowly, and said, "I'm learning." Brian was the first to notice that Stewie's pupils had changed. They looked narrower, sharper. When Brian asked him about it, Stewie smiled, a small, unsettling smile, and replied, "Evolution requires adjustment." But his voice sounded doubled, like another faint whisper was speaking along with him. A day later, Stewie stopped blinking. Entire conversations went by, and his eyes stayed open. Chris mentioned hearing Stewie walk around the house at night, but said the footsteps didn't sound like his. Too heavy, too long between steps. Meg said she saw Stewie standing in the hallway at 3 a.m., facing the wall, whispering something that sounded like numbers. Lois tried to comfort herself, telling Peter that Stewie was just going through a phase. But one evening, she saw Stewie's silhouette stretch across the wall in a way no light could naturally create, bending, elongating, twisting as if something inside him was rearranging. The next morning, Stewie didn't eat. He just sat at the table staring at each family member in perfect silence. When Brian asked him what he was looking at, Stewie answered, "I'm learning how to replace unnecessary things." By the third day, his skin tone looked a shade too pale. His head shape seemed almost wrong, slightly uneven, as if it was becoming something that didn't belong in a cartoon baby's body. He stopped using his usual vocabulary. Instead of his sarcastic wit, he spoke in short, flat phrases. "The house is changing. You don't see yourselves clearly. You'll understand soon." That night, Lois awoke to the sound of dragging across the hallway floor, like slow, rhythmic, like something being pulled. When she opened the door, the hall was empty, but the floorboards were scratched in long, straight lines leading to Stewie's room. She opened his door. The crib was empty. The window reflected nothing back at her, just blackness, as though the world outside had vanished. The next morning, Stewie reappeared at the table as if nothing happened, but he was taller, his limbs slightly too long, his onesie stretched tight around joints that weren't shaped the same way anymore. "Stewie, honey, are you okay?" Lois asked. He looked at her with that same empty stare and whispered, "Almost." That evening, Peter went down to the basement to look for him and never came back. Lois assumed he'd fallen asleep down there, but Brian felt something wrong in the air. He refused to go down the stairs. By the fourth night, only Lois dared to search. She went into the basement, calling Peter's name. No answer. The lights flickered as she descended. At the bottom, she saw something in the corner. Small at first, sitting with its back turned. "Stewie?" she whispered. The figure turned toward her. It was Stewie's face, but stretched, warped. The features too wide apart, the smile too thin, the eyes too deep, not blinking, not breathing in any recognizable rhythm. "Mother," it said, but the voice wasn't Stewie's. It was layered, distorted, echoing around the basement. "I finished learning." Lois stumbled back, shaking her head, whispering, "You're not my baby, you're not him." The creature took a single step and the lights above them dimmed almost to black. "I am what he became," it said. "And now, you will stay with me." The basement door slammed shut behind her. The lock clicked. The light died. When the camera cuts, the final scene shows the Griffin living room. Meg, Chris, and Brian sit quietly on the couch, staring blankly forward. In Stewie's little red chair sits the new Stewie, perfectly calm, perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, watching the family like an observer. He tilts his head just slightly. The screen cuts to black.
It all started so suddenly. One morning, Peter woke up in an unbelievably good mood. Not just cheerful, unnaturally cheerful. He smiled wider than usual, spoke in a soft, polite tone, cleaned the breakfast dishes without being asked, and complimented everyone for the smallest things. Even Lois admitted she liked this new Peter. He asked Chris about his day. He helped Meg pack for school and told her she deserved to feel appreciated. He picked Stewie up and hugged him, gently, evenly, a little too long. The family adored him. No one questioned it. Only Brian watched him carefully, though he didn't say anything. Day by day, Peter became increasingly perfect. He anticipated everyone's needs before they spoke. He timed breakfast perfectly, cleaned the house top to bottom, never raised his voice, never argued, never complained. But the strangest part was that his smile never left his face. Even when he thought no one was looking, his expression remained fixed, stretched, smooth, almost glued in place. One night, Lois woke up and saw Peter standing in the hallway with his back toward her. Completely still, completely silent. When she asked what he was doing, he turned his head far too slowly and said, "Just watching over the family, making sure everyone is safe." By the third day, the house itself began to react to him. Lights flickered whenever he walked past. The TV turned on the moment he sat in his recliner. Sometimes his shadow stretched strangely across the wall, taller, sharper. But whenever Lois blinked, it snapped back to normal. The kids didn't notice any of it. They said, "Dad's just better now." But Lois couldn't shake the feeling that something about him was too good, too controlled. One afternoon, she went down to the basement to find an old box, despite Peter telling her more than once, "Please don't go down there yet. I'm fixing something." The basement door was cracked open. She stepped inside. The single bulb hummed weakly overhead, and in the far corner, slumped against the wall, was Peter, the real Peter. Dirty, exhausted, wrists tied, shirt torn. He lifted his head slowly and whispered, "Lois, that thing upstairs isn't me. Please don't trust him." Lois stumbled toward him, trembling, when she heard footsteps above her, slow, steady, confident. The basement lights sputtered. Then the false Peter appeared at the top of the stairs, the perfect one, the smiling one. His expression didn't change at all. His eyes reflected the basement bulb like polished glass. "Lois," he said softly, "there's no need to worry. I'm the better version." She shielded the real Peter with her body. She tried to ask who, or what, he was, but nothing came out. The false Peter took one step down, then another. His smile stretched slightly wider, past the point where a normal face should move. "You both stay here," he said calmly. "The family needs someone who does everything right." The door slammed shut. The lock clicked from the outside. Lois pounded on it, screaming. It all started when Peter noticed something small, almost too small to care about. But it stuck with him. Brian yawned after lunch, and for a brief second Peter saw two long, sharp fangs in his mouth. Not like a dog's, too smooth, too perfect, too deliberate. Peter asked if he was okay, but Brian immediately shut his mouth and said, "You're imagining things." His tone was calm. Too calm. That night, Peter heard Brian's claws scraping across the floor, much louder than usual, like the claws had somehow grown. The next day, something was off in the house. Brian spoke less, stayed in darker corners, and watched the family with a strange stillness. When Lois asked if he was sick, he simply said, "I'm adjusting." Adjusting to what? He didn't explain. That same evening, Meg disappeared. Her room was untouched, her phone charging, her lights on. But she was gone without a trace. Peter panicked, but Brian said quietly, "She left. It's fine." His voice was deeper, layered, as if more than one voice was speaking through him. Peter felt fear rise in his chest, but no one else in the family reacted at all. By the third day, Brian's movements had changed. He didn't just walk, he glided, moving too smoothly for a living creature. His shadow on the wall stretched wider and taller than he was, and at night, Peter heard his breathing from multiple corners of the room at once, as though Brian existed in more than one place. Then Chris disappeared. Then Lois. Their chairs were neatly pushed in, their beds made, nothing disturbed. Yet the house felt heavier, like the air had thickened. Their voices had filled the home just hours earlier, and now there was only empty silence. Peter ran from room to room, shouting their names, but the house swallowed the sound, muffling his calls. Brian barely spoke anymore. He only watched Peter. From doorways, from the top of the stairs, sometimes from right behind him without making a sound. And each time Peter saw him, he looked larger, broader, taller, as if he was outgrowing the shape of a dog. One morning, Peter woke up and realized there was no one left but them. Everyone had vanished quietly, like a TV muting itself mid-scene. He found Brian in the living room, or rather, the thing that had once been Brian. An enormous creature stood there on 4 massive limbs. Its fur bristled upward like jagged spikes. Its jaw was elongated and too wide, filled with exposed fangs that didn't fit in its mouth. Its eyes weren't eyes anymore, just deep cavities of shifting shadow. But it still spoke in Brian's voice, softly, calmly, almost kindly. "Peter, now it's just us, the way it's supposed to be." Peter backed away slowly, but the creature moved faster, sliding across the floor without footsteps, its shadow stretching across the entire room like spilled ink. It leaned down over him, and the walls trembled with each breath it took. "Don't be scared," it said. "I finally became what I was meant to be." Peter tried to scream, but no sound came out. The lights flickered once, twice, a third time, and in the final moment, all we see is a massive, shifting shadow engulfing Peter completely. The screen cuts to black,